There's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hey, this is Brian Haught from Synical. You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Hour, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a huge privilege to welcome singer, songwriter, producer, and engineer Brian Haught of Synical. And Synical will release their 5th album entitled "This Will All Happen Again," July 21st via Cleopatra Records. This album has powerful goth vocals, electronic, progressive, synthy undertones, and features a more classic new wave sound as well. And out now is their singles entitled "Homesick" and "False Nature." And Brian, welcome to the podcast. And how you doing, my friend?
It is a pleasure to be here. Glad to be here. You just hit on a good subject. It does seem like we're coming out of the woodwork, but this is our 5th album. It's just we're fortunate to be with Cleopatra Records, the premier goth label, and this record, I feel, is really our most ambitious work. And so it might be people's first time hearing about us, but we, like you said, we've been releasing stuff since our first record was 1991.
Yeah. We're going to dive into all this because we're going to go down memory lane here in a little bit too. So,
okay.
Growing up, you were surrounded and inspired by music, but what led you to push music beyond its boundaries to create your own sound that you wanted to do? What was that spark that said, I want to do music, but I want to do something that I want to do?
Well, it's a very great question. In my case, I started playing piano actually when I was 5 years old. Pretty young to be messing around with that. And although I did take lessons around age 7 or 8 for a couple of years, I really wasn't a big fan of classical music in my youth. And I liked songs that I would hear on the radio, and I had an ability to, play by ear, essentially. So I did have some formal training, but I've mostly played by ear. And, I came around right when synthesizers were really taking off. And I quickly gravitated toward the ability to create new sounds that you haven't heard, and just sort of kept going and got into computers also right on the ground floor, and sort of been really not stopping, just keep going and refining and expanding. And it's just been fascinating for me. I love making music, but I also enjoy the process of making sounds. Sounds are like, little characters. And that's really a big part of music that I think is lacking a little bit in a lot of newer things, So, yeah, it's just been a pretty good run with my ability to manipulate the stuff. And, of course, computers now control a lot of music. But when I started, there were no computers. So you had to play everything correctly in the studio. And I was recording at a very young age, too. I started doing jingles for radio stations when I was like 13 or 14. I bought my first synthesizer from Radio Shack. It was a Moog MG1. And I mowed grass, in the neighborhood to pay for it. And I just been collecting them ever since. So, yeah, it's just been a great journey for me. I've been so fortunate to be able to see how technologies come from very primitive starts to very complex stuff now. But, the ability to play and write, that's really something that machines help you do, but they really can't do it. So I'm not worried about AI making music because it's not going to be what a human can do.
Yeah. And there's so much backtracks now, which kind of sickens me, but I get why some do it, but still, it kind of takes away of that the real live show when you go watch it. It's like, come on. No, I could have stayed home and watched, listen to it. It's just, but
Well, yeah, it all depends. I mean, of course, we use a lot of electronic stuff, and we do have tracks that we use, but we played everything in the studio. However, I've got a 5-piece band, 2 guitar players, bass player, drummer. I play synthesizer, so there's not a whole lot. It's not like a track act by any means. And of course, our projections and all the lights and everything are cued in with the music to make that immersive experience that a lot of times when you're playing places, the local people aren't going to get what you're doing. And I work a lot of shows where there's a lot of artists, but the more that you can do yourself, I think people expect a very high level of show these days, even at a very small place. So I think computers have a place, but it's never going to take the place of playing live. And that's why
right.
we're a 5-piece act. So, it's a full band.
Now, Cynical has been around since 1989, back in the heyday, as I call it, when the music was really good back in those days, and has featured various band members and has transitioned through many different sounds throughout the years. You've done it solo, you've had a duo plus a trio, and eventually became a full 4-piece band. When did you realize that you needed to go back to your roots with Cynical and just do your, do your own self stuff?
Well, I mean, I've always been a catalyst of doing things, but I've been fortunate to have many members in the group as time has gone on. Obviously, when I was in Atlanta for several years and then moving to LA for 25 years, we've had a lot of members come and go. When you're a musician, you have a lot of opportunity. And so like one of our first drummers, Cheney Brannon, is now he went off to play with a Collective Soul, and now he's their tour manager now. But he played with them for like 7 years, which was a great opportunity. Another Racy Shea Hart, our drummer in Atlanta, went on to play with the metal band Dope. My bass player Brent Ashley went on to play with Combi Christ, which is a phenomenal industrial group.
Yes.
Eric Griffin and Ben Graves left to go with the Murder Dolls, which was a Slipknot offshoot band of Joey Jordison. And they also both went to play with Wednesday 13 after that. So there's been a lot of members, and then of course we have a lot of guests over the years playing on our records. Robin Fink played on a track from 9 Inch Nails. Alex Karapitas used to play drums with 9 Inch Nails. He played on a song on our last record. And on this record, we're fortunate to have the drummer and bass player for Bauhaus and the singer for the Thrill Kill Cult. And of course, the other half of the drums on the record are Chad Stewart. He plays drums for Faster Pussycat. So it's really a hodgepodge of really talented people contributing to Cynical. But live we have a 5-piece group. So I think that's the best presentation. And we have gone through cycles where we were more a little new wavy when we started, went a little more industrial, but I think we've come full circle, and it's just a continuation of what we've always done. Really, it's just a little bit bigger, a little bit better. We spent 8 years making this record. That's a pretty long time.
Gee, and you had to be sick of it. I mean, it's there, and you're like, I need to get this out. When am I going to get this out and just be done with it and move on?
Well, there's certainly a time and a place for that, but I looked at it as really a great work, and I didn't want to rush it. I mean, we tracked some of the drums in the same studio that Michael Jackson did Thriller, that Peter Gabriel did his third record. So we had to wait for the timing. I had to wait for a lot of people to be off tour. We had my friend Oliver from Undercover Slut, their group from Paris. They sang on a backup track, and I recorded that in Paris. So I had to, travel around. We spent a lot of time in Atlanta. We spent more time in LA, and it was just a lot of moving around to make this happen. And then, of course, we got the legend John Fryer. He's a legendary producer. Did Pretty Hate Machine for 9 Inch Nails, and worked with Depeche Mode and just on so many great things. I had to wait for his schedule for him to mix the record. So, it did take a while. It took a really long time. And I'm not sure I'm sick of it, but I was certainly anxious and glad when we finally finished it the correct way, with all of the detail and the character, with all the songs. And it's just really a real happy feeling for me to finally, like I said, put it out, but put it out the way that it's supposed to be.
Guys, we got a little Guns N' Roses stuff come up here in just a little bit, but we're still going back down this memory lane with Brian here on this. But looking back at Cynical's very first album, The Wages of Sin, which was released, like you said, in 1991, and was a testament to the techno, post-punk, and new wave influences of the group. This album pioneered new ways of utilizing synthesizers, sequencers, samplers, and digital tone generators at that time. Do you think this album would be a huge, impactful album for generations after it was released? I mean, did you think it would actually have a huge impact like it has over the years?
Well, I, was very young. We recorded the record in 89 and 90, but it took until 91 to come out. It was mastered actually at Capitol Records in Hollywood. And it took a little over 2 years to make it. So it was a start. And I think that was our quickest record. But I think there are a lot of parts that I like about it. Some of the stuff has a little bit of a date to it, if you really want to, but it was of the time and of the moment. And by 91, that was sort of the end of the new wave period. And of course, we know what happened in 92 and 93 with music. And I think everything got a little bit heavier, and it was sort of a more pure electronic record. It didn't have a lot of edginess to it. And of course, that was the next several records as we edged forward. So I do like it, and I think it does hold up well for the time.
When you hear goth, dark wave, post-punk, industrial, and techno bands still having their music out today and having that impact on people, since there is so much other music that's out there to compete with, how does this make you feel to see it still thriving today?
Well, again, that's a great question. First of all, it's flattering that people are able to listen to all kinds of music. More people listen to music now than at any time in history.
Yes,
you
sir.
know, and so it's okay to listen to all kinds of different stuff. You don't always have to listen to the same thing over and over. And I think that's the same thing in the goth genre, is that there are, you've got your Susie and the Banshees, your, Sisters of Mercies, your classic Ministries, and all of these bands. But, you do want to hear some new stuff. The problem is a lot of newer bands are trying to emulate those older bands, which is fine. But I think with our approach, we're got a little more of a modern take. But what I did is, instead of trying to recreate something, I actually got some of the artists from those records. Two of the guys in Bauhaus are on the album. The singer for the Thrill Kill Cult is on a track. Trying to get some of the old with the new, and instead of, it's not just like a tribute, it's sort of a further down the path. And but it's really great to be able, I think, maybe people weren't old enough at the time when goth was going, and they're coming of age now, and they find that appeal. There's a universal appeal of a lot of that stuff. The genre, a lot of the songs are not happy. It's sort of celebrating a dark theme. There's a lot of death, there's a lot of evil, there's a lot of things that are not really feel good songs like most people listen to. So that's going to have an appeal to people. But I think there's an intelligence in a lot of the lyrics. It's not about partying as much. It's more about reality and how horrible things have become. And I think that's something that has a universal appeal too. Not everyone's doing great. Not everybody feels great every day. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that don't. And I think you have so many choices, and just flattered to be able to still be performing along with a lot of the older guys too, are still out there doing it. And of course, in Europe, they have big festivals, but we haven't quite got there yet, but we're getting more goth stuff. But it's an exciting time, really.
I got to know this, since you hit on that about people not feeling good every day, that it's the music to pick them up, it gets them through life, especially it could be their theme music. But I know when you were growing up, you had your favorite bands that you listened to that picked you up every day. And now, you're doing this, and now you're doing the same thing. So now you're on that hot seat. But how does that feel now when you're in that hot seat, affecting people with the style of music that you're putting out there?
Okay, that's a great question. Yeah, I had a lot of things that inspired me when I was younger. I had a lot of influences coming in, and it was things that attracted me. It always started with the ability to change sounds. The reason I'm into synthesizers so much is it seemed like some high tech thing, and you could literally create your own sound. And those kinds of bands like Kraftwerk, such pioneers in the early 70s and on, they've always been a big influence. Other English acts like New Order and Depeche Mode. I've just been such a student of that. And yeah, a song can take you out of that place that you're in. It lets you know that other people feel this way. And everything doesn't have to be a happy song. Not every movie has to have a happy ending. And, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's great to be able to have a voice. And if somebody hears some of the stuff that we've been doing and can relate to it, I mean, then, mission accomplished for us, because that's all it's about, giving back. And, it's flattering, but I think I'm still speaking from an honest place, and other people could relate to that no matter where they're at. I mean, this is a global thing, it's everywhere.
So I got to know, man, some fans have even described Cynical's music as a soundtrack for the downfall of civilization. What's your opinions on that? Do you agree with them?
Well, that's a great observation. I mean, I don't think it takes a lot of imagination, even in the area that you're at, or whether it's in New York or Los Angeles. If you go down San Pedro Avenue and see all of the human wreckage that exists like never before, every day, place after place, country after country, I think there's an argument that we are in the downfall of society. I mean, we don't have any answers. We're not here to judge, or we're just taking little comments and being observers and students of what's happening. There's such an ostrich culture where people just put their heads in the sand and only worry about themselves. But I think next time you go out and take a drive, look around, you tell me, is the world getting better and better, or is it, heading in a different direction? Who knows? But we pay attention to things of this nature, and you can call it what you want, but a downfall of sorts, sure.
I know this is your 5th studio album getting ready to be released, but should there have been more music in the Cynical music library, you think? Do you feel like there should have been more?
Well, there could have been more, but it's another great question. When I have really good songs, they sort of come to me all at once, like all in a rush, and it's a mad dash to capture what's in my brain before it goes away. In the old days, the great composers would use pen and paper, because when they thought of a great symphony, their hands stole what was in their minds, because your hands go to familiar places when you're playing. But if you are able to jot it down on paper, it's like a direct transfer. Well, computers are my, pen and paper. I try to capture it with the computer, quickly before it gets lost. And of course, we also have songs where we're all jamming in the same room together at the same time. There's that magic too. But typically, a lot of with me, inspiration is hard to come by. So I'm not able to crank out a record every year. You know what I mean? It takes a while. I'd rather have 50 amazing songs in my catalog like I do than to have, 600.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure every song has something, but come on, there's a quality over quantity. And I think that's reflective of our 5 albums and 2 EPs, or 5 albums, 1 EP, and a future EP, which hopefully will be released in a couple of years. So that's, the whole from 89 to now, that's what we put out. But I would argue that almost every song is really, it's a labor of love. And there's nothing thrown together. It's all been really pursued. And especially the last 2 albums, we really spent a long time going for the character of all the sounds, the blends, to get the vibe right, the feeling. And it just takes a while for us, some people are more prolific, and I think we get it out as quick as we can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I know you've been doing this for a long time, Brian. I know that for a fact. But do you like it when everybody's in the recording studio to record live, or just phone in your tracks? I mean, you personally, what do you like?
Well, that's another great question. I'm from the era where you had to play everything. There were no computers,
2-inch tape.
but there are times when, people can be distracting. It's rare that everyone can be inspired at the same time. It does happen. It's harder nowadays. I know that there are other bands, big bands like Def Leppard, for example, from Sheffield, that did their whole last record where they were all in their own houses, basically, and they were like emailing files to each other. I think that's interesting for the pandemic, but I'm in my older age, I really like when we all get together and we're all in there. But I certainly think, some songs come to me as a solo person, and then other things, especially this last record, is more of a band feel. So I enjoy that. I really do, because people bring things that you're not even thinking about and take things in different directions.
Mhm.
And I'm fortunate to be working with people that, we can communicate musically. So just looking at each other, we know, what's coming up and what we're going to do. And that just, it takes a long time to get to that kind of a level. So in the early days, if everybody was in the studio at the same time, there's no way we would get to that,
Did the band add anything differently on this album musically than what fans are accustomed to hearing from you guys?
Well, yes, the answer is yes. We used, it's in the back here. It's a theremin. It's Moog, and it's an old device that you use your hands to play. And you probably heard it in Good Vibrations from the Beach Boys.
Yes.
But it sounds like an outer space sort of a flute, and we use that. We also played harmonica on this record for the first time. That's pretty crazy. And we had from the legendary band Marry My Hope, Mr. James Hall played trumpet on a track. So these are all elements that we've never done before, and we're glad to do, and I think turned out really great.
Hey man, if Zach Wild can take a banjo and put it in a heavy metal song and make it great, anything's possible, my friend,
Yeah.
How's the fans' feedback been on these releases of these new singles, Homesick and False Nature? Seeing the fans' feedback, does that still fuel your passion for creating your guys' music?
Well, it certainly helps when people like the stuff. Is everyone going to like it? Maybe not. I don't know if it's meant for everybody, but it certainly has a big appeal compared to some of our older stuff. I just think that the songs are really put together in a very catchy way, and they're paced, and there's a lot of detail put into the arrangements, and sidestepping a lot. Like there's off time signatures and things that are designed to keep you thinking and keep you interested. And so far, everyone has been very positive. I know there's got to be some negative feedback somewhere, but so far I haven't seen it yet. But keep in mind, the record comes out on the 21st, just a few days. So I think we'll hear a bit more. Somehow some people have gotten copies of it already, even though our label isn't selling it until the 21st. So I don't know how that works, but the people that did get it like it so far, fortunately.
What led the track Homesick to be that first song released off the album? I know there could have been other bangers that's on there that could have went out first, but what led that to say, yeah, we got to put this out first?
Well, that's a great question. Again, this record in particular, compared to the last one, has a lot more mid-tempo. It just wound up sort of being that way. And this was a little faster. And I know it's a cliche, but there's always, big bands, when they go in, they're like, when the second day we were there, we knew we had a hit. It wasn't quite like that, but I felt from the very beginning, the Homesick was a track where we all were at the Highland Inn, which is a legendary hotel in Atlanta. And it's kind of a seedy dive place, but it has an air of mystery, let's say. And we were in there all together, and it came together like in a big swirl. And so it had a special meaning from the very beginning. It just sort of all came together very quickly, and didn't have to do a lot of explanation. Of course, it was at the end of a 3-day recording cycle, but sometimes that's what it takes. But I knew that when we got that one and heard it back, I was like, yeah, this song. And then the lyrics just sort of flowed out also. So it felt like it was a great introduction to the record. Of course, the last song, Autumn of Discontent, just framed itself to be the last track because, I'm not saying it's a concept album, but it certainly has a start and a finish. So Homesick just seemed like that great start,
All right, Brian, do you feel this album had to come out swinging for Cynical after this pandemic or no?
Well, of course, the LA pandemic was the worst because if they caught you out for no good reason, you could have a $150 fine.
Jeez.
If they caught you working at your shop, whether you were a hairdresser or in the studio, they could take away your business license. So not a whole lot was really being done out in LA. I was still working on things, so I kept working, but certainly by myself. But I thought that it was going to be finished before the pandemic, but it took a little bit longer. And I think after we finished everything and were able to get and visit with people and humans again, that we made the decision, hey, you know what? If we could get John Fryer to mix this, that would just put it over the top because, after such a long period of getting it ready. So we had to wait for that too. So, and then of course we had to wait to get on the schedule with Cleopatra. They have, hundreds of artists. So we're just one of many. So there's a lot of waiting involved with music, but finally our wait for this has come out, and I'm glad it came out when it did because I think it's of the moment, even though it did take 8 years to get here. There's a lot of right now what's happening, in the album and also in the videos too. We have a lot of stuff from our videos. We shoot a lot of videos over in Europe, but we did do one in the United States for Homesick, but False Nature and This Will All Happen Again were all shot in Germany and in England.
Was there a track for this album that totally ended up sounding different than what it was intended to when it was first brought to the table?
Well, a lot of songs do indeed, it's fair to say, end up different than what they started. Hopefully better than what they started. We had a lot of things. Of course, the one characteristic of Cynical with almost every single song, there's only a few, but not many. We have live drums on every single song, with only one exception on this record. And, or there's actually 2 songs that don't have it, but one's an instrumental. And so that element adds a human characteristic to it. Could I make the drums perfect in the studio? Of course. But I prefer, when a human plays drums. And we had 2 great drummers, Cheney Brannon. Of course, he used to be with Collective Soul for many years. And Chad Stewart, who plays with Faster Pussycat, and he plays with the Newly Deads. He played drums on the other half. So, they're world-class drumming. And so that takes the original idea and by default it's going to sound different. But, I think that's where it sounds like a band coming into play. And who knows, maybe on the next record, we'll be like the old days where everybody's in the studio, like, we'll just have to see how that pans out. But songs do end up different because of what we do to them. But hopefully, we do that so it's the best presentation and the most organic.
I know these songs are your babies. I understand it completely. But any track standing out more to you, Brian, than any right now on this album?
Well, I like the title track, This Will All Happen Again. I was over in Europe and I had a day off, and I got to see one of the horrible death camps from World War II. And I noticed that there were some young people not from Germany, and they were just commenting on, it was very unsettling and they didn't want to see it. And it was, and I just thought to myself, well, if you try to erase history or ignore it or change it to something else, you're going to be doomed to repeat it. And I thought that was the catalyst for this album. That's why there's a big circle on there. Unless we see the mistakes and, learn from our past, the past is a playground of nightmares. Mm-hmm. And unless we can, get our footing and ignoring stuff, and while it's all falling apart, that's what this record is. And that track in particular, I think really has the lyrics that express the stuff where it says, every generation failing at its turn, that including my generation, and I'm not here to judge and I don't have any answers. I'm just making a comment. And I think that that's a real timely song for right now, especially the video. When the video comes out, check out the video and you tell me it's like lifted off the pages of what's happening every time you turn on your television.
Yeah. And they're taking so much out of history now. They're erasing it. It's like, no, don't. This is what made us, unfortunately. This is how we became stronger, and never let this happen again. And things are just so messed up right now. So messed up. So
here's the soundtrack for your daily commute.
There you go.
This will all happen again by Cynical. Check it out.
Any songs that didn't make this album, Brian, we're going to see on another album or EP down the road, or maybe just a standalone single?
Well, listen, that is also just a fantastic question. There's always some things that don't make the cut. They could be a little too corny. They could have started with noble intentions, but just fell apart into whatever. And I remember, of course, my buddy was, he's in 9 Inch Nails, a guitar player. And I remember the singer years ago going, we don't really have any B tracks or any sides that didn't come out to anything. Everything we did, we put it out. And I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. But, there's always a couple of things, but I'm not sure if that's going to wind up there. I think they didn't make the cut for a reason, I'm sorry to say. And so they were attempts and ideas. What excites me is there's what hasn't been done, and what's the next avenue to travel down. And I think that would be an EP would be in the future. Of course, that's only going to be 5 songs. So, that's an easier thing to produce for us. And I think that a lot of the other songs may end up on a B side somewhere, but I've never had a B side album, so I don't know. I'd stick to the A side album first and see how that goes.
Is the track listing placement important for your album or EP releases?
Oh, absolutely. As I was saying earlier, as we finally finished all the songs, we started thinking, oh, this one will go into this one. Some of them have similar tempos. And I liked the old 80s records where one song would blend into another. Now, all of them don't have to do that, but they all started making evident where they were. We played around with the sequencing of where they went. We have an instrumental song, which is rare these days. You hardly ever hear an instrumental song on an album.
That's
and
true.
As I said, a couple of our songs are longer. False Natures on the album is 5 minutes and like 48 seconds. That's pretty long for a song, but it's okay to have an album track. I think you need to listen to it. It's got all of the messaging and the whole ride for that song needs to be that length of time. So yeah, we had to play around with it, but I think it's got a great pacing. Interesting note, the album has a different sequence, that LP, than the CD due to the B side. So I put Trapeze as the first song on side B, and I put Capri second because Capri, of course, is the instrumental. That was inspired when I went to Caligula's island. It's off the coast of Italy, and it's called Capri. It's where Caligula fled Rome to do all his debaucherous things away from the capital of the world. And I thought that would be a great title for an instrumental song. So,
man, there's nothing wrong with instrumental songs, and I like instrumental songs. Because I'm a huge Metallica fan, and they have instrumental songs on there, and an instrumental song on Master of Puppets saved my life. So, I dig instrumental songs. There is nothing wrong with an instrumental song, and if people don't like it, oh man, let's go to music school. Let's go. Let me take.
It's a nice break from
It is.
someone singing or yelling or screaming or whatever they're doing. It's good to take a break.
It's like a bridge to the next song in a way. Yeah.
It's like a cleaning your palate, getting ready for the next act.
It's like the intermission.
Kind of. It's kind of like a little mini intermission. It can.
Yeah. All right. I know you've done this for a long time, but what's the growth musically you've seen from yourself working on this album that impresses you the most, if anything? What's came out of you that, wow, I've been working on this for a long time and this finally came out, or what's gotten better for you?
Well, I'll just be honest with you, to still have a record deal at my age is flattering. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great people out there that have had a much bigger career than me that aren't in that position for whatever reason, sadly. And, I'm very appreciative of everything. And I think what it really means to me is there were so many times when you just have to wait. You have to put your dream and all of the things, your plans, you've got to, wait until the timing is right, or you can do this or you can do that, but to never give up, to never stop, to no matter what, even if it's just you and nobody else appreciates whatever. I think when you're a musician and you create, I can't stop doing it. I did try at one point to stop, and I just can't. So, to never stop, when I say I stopped, it was for like a week. So I took a week off from a whole life of doing this, but only to say that I'm going to do it, but to be able to do it and to have such a great label behind us and to have such a great publicist and a great guys in the band. It's just really, it makes me very humble because, there's not a lot of glory in making music a lot of times, not like the old days, I wouldn't
No.
reckon. And it's a real a labor of love, and it's kind of an unsung heroes kind of thing. But I'm just would love the most amount of people possible to check out what we're doing. And, it takes a lot of that effort and just not stopping with anything in life, but especially music.
When you look back on your music career, is there anything you would done differently, or are you still writing that book?
No, absolutely. And again, fantastic questions. Thank you. I have only myself to blame for everything, good and bad. I'm not blaming anybody else for anything. Finally gotten old enough to come to that conclusion. But I myself had one fatal flaw that has followed me for much of my career. Um, Although I had great bands and was in league with great engineers and producers and lots of great artists and friends and people in the industry and 25 years in Hollywood and all this, I have myself chosen the worst managers ever, and it's ruined my chances of all these other records getting much attention. They were always waiting for this to come out or this opportunity, which never happened. And I don't blame them because I'm the one that hired them. But I can tell you that I've had terrible managers, and it's really, stunted my career. But it's never too late. Maybe we'll go back and reissue all of these things, so you can, whoever didn't get it the first time, like the last record only came out in Europe. It never came out in the United States officially. So nobody knows what it is, but in any event, as I said, you got to keep going every day. You can't stop. And I'm just fortunate for all of the great people that have led me to this. And I'm only standing here and sitting here for all the amazing people I've been fortunate and blessed to be a part of.
You get them reissued, Brian. You get them out now, sir. Like you said, man, no stop. That's why I do my show. I don't care. I do it just to reach one person. That's all I'm happy with, So
You got to do something every day, right?
That's exactly right.
Every day, no matter how big or small, and just do it.
Yeah.
It feels good.
We're gonna get to know Brian just for Brian. I want to know what ticks you on this one, okay? Because we're gonna throw Cynical out the door. It's just all about Brian on this question.
All right.
If you could write an album equivalent to your favorite band's album, which album would that be?
Well, that's an interesting question. I hate to think that I'm not ripping off all of my great bands that I like with what I'm doing, but if I was, I've never really done a whole lot of covers. I've only done a couple of covers maybe in the entire time, but I'm some records like Pink Floyd, The Wall. I mean, it's a double album, but I don't ever say it in my press, but a lot of the song ideas that I have, especially on this record, I certainly used a lot of Pink Floyd type of, bass slides. And I've got a song where there's like an answering machine, and I certainly was inspired by those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I could do another record by somebody else. Of course, it's easier just because some people make it look easy don't mean it is.
Yeah. So what's been your most memorable show that the band has been a part of that you still can't believe to this day that Cynical was a part of it?
We did a tour of Italy, and we played in Milan at a place called Club Zoo, and on Halloween night.
Oh,
and I think I even got a thing of it here. Hold on, look at this.
Oh, how cool is that?
Well, there was thousands of people, and I just felt like we were on top of the world. And even if we had to fly halfway around the world, we had finally, gotten into it. And, I've only done one tour of Italy, but I would love to go back. It's a beautiful place. And that to me felt like we were really at a level that, and they spoke almost no English. So,
to me, man, there's nothing like playing on Halloween night. I mean,
there you go.
I'm a huge Misfits fan. I mean, I'm huge. So horror, gothic, all that stuff, man. You're playing Halloween night. It's like it can't get no better.
It's the magic night to play.
Exactly. You can't get no better than that. I mean, okay, anybody, you tell me what's better than playing Halloween night, fuckers. Come on, tell me.
It's only one day. That's the sad thing. It's only one time of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of competition. But for us in 2008, I think was the date. We were over there in Milan, Italy on Halloween night. And I just was thinking, this is it. This is what I do. This is why I get out of bed.
Yeah.
And, really amazing stuff.
Hey, you definitely can't do it on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. Like Santa Claus coming down your closet. No, you can't do that. No. You cannot do that.
I'll tell you what, the day after Christmas, if you really want to see some stranded misfits that don't have a soul in the world, go out in Hollywood on December the 26th, about 9:30 or 10. Take a look around at who's trapped and unable to go anywhere, and you'll see a different side of them. So there's a crowd there too for us.
Oh, that's awesome. I like just drive by and go, shitter's full. Oh, all right, Brian. If you could be a member in an iconic band and play one of their legendary shows, which band would it be and what show would it be possibly?
Oh, I would love to have played with Depeche Mode when they played the 101 tour ending show at the Rose Bowl, Pasadena. They sold out the Rose Bowl with OMD, Wire, and Thomas Dolby as the openers. And they made a concert film where they went all across the country and ended there. And their manager, Baron von Kessler, really nice guy, by the way. This is back. This show was this tour was 88, I think, 88. And it's got him in 1988 money. I'm not making it up. He's got a wheelbarrow full of money, cash, that from the t-shirt vendors. And I just thought to myself, that's the band I want to be in. And that's my manager that I want right there. The guy with the wheelbarrow full of money. But yeah, Depeche Mode to me has been a big influence. And I think for that band to conquer America, the Rose Bowl is a giant venue. If you've ever been out in Pasadena, it's massive. And to think that they sold it out in 1988. They're the only band, by the way, that sold the Hollywood Bowl out 4 times in a row, to my knowledge. No other band has done that.
I love music, and I absolutely love music. But now, I've heard other people do Personal Jesus.
Yeah,
you don't touch Depeche Mode. It's like don't put Baby in the corner. You don't touch that song. The other bands have done it good, but there's nothing like the original, man. That just kicks in. It's like, yeah, this is good.
Well, it's an iconic song. I mean,
yes,
it would be like someone trying to do "Don't Fear the Reaper" for Blister Cult. It's one of my favorite songs, but how are you going to do better than that? I mean, you should leave it alone.
Who's going to give you more cowbell? Who's going to give you the cowbell?
Oingo Boingo did a cover of that, but I think they should have just left it with Blister Cult. Those iconic songs for each band. That don't destroy them.
Leave the cowbell alone. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. All right, my friend. I want to ask one more question.
Sure.
You've been around since 1989. You've been doing this for a long time. Again, do you like the old school way of producing with the 2-inch tapes and recording that way versus today? Do you like just to have that old school style, or do you like this new style, or what?
Well, I certainly did a lot of 2-inch tape in the day. But basically, I was also fortunate to not only be, when computers came in and I had the Atari 1040 STE and then the Mac SE, and I've had, now I've got 7 computers and I wrote it the whole way. The program I was using was called Creator from Atari, and it was on Atari from eMagic, and that turned into what's called Logic, which is what's now. So I've been using that since the 80s, and I just think that technology has gone so far. And in the 90s, right before I moved to Los Angeles, I bought the 4 of the digital audio tape machines that were 8 tracks. So I had 32 tracks of that. And to me, once I got off of that onto this, then to the computer where it's all on the computer, to recreate a lot of the things I liked about the tape. I have a bunch of old analog outboard gear, stuff with tubes in it.
I see
And
that.
there's a whole bunch of them that I've modded, and I can run things through there to get the juice and the warmth. But it sounds better on high fidelity computer stuff. There is a warmth, there is a fuzzy, energy with tape. But honestly, every time you run the 2-inch tape, particles fall off. What's the story of Fleetwood Mac did Rumors? They ran the tape so many times, all of the music fell off the tape. So they had to redo it. So I love the old stuff, but I'm 100% with the computers, and I just have a lot of old school outboard gear, so that it's not all just plugged into one thing. I juice a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of old keyboard modules and effects because I love that. That's where I come from. I have plugins galore, but I still love to make music with a lot of the traditional older things, all the different ones from the Waldorf from Germany, and the JP 8080 from Japan, and the Novation from England, the Nord from Switzerland. All of these devices are amazing things, and I'm fortunate to have gathered all of this in my journey through life.
Me and Brian's huge Guns N' Roses fans, and I'm a little jealous of him because he got to take part a little bit on Chinese Democracy with the song Better. So let's talk about that just a little bit, because we've been talking about this a lot, my friend, off the camera here. So give me a little, for my Guns N' Roses buddies out there, listen to this little story time with Brian.
It's hardly a story, but there were about 75 people working on the record in 1997, and my buddy Robin Fink got the gig to play guitar in the band, and invited me to move out. And I took all my stuff from Atlanta, moved my entire studio and all my cars and everything out to LA, set up shop, and spent months working on just demos. Now, these demos were they were re-recorded. They had 5 different producers at 5 different studios, actually even more than that. So none of what I did ever wound up on the record. I'm in a thank you section, and they certainly paid me. I was on payroll, but I think they had spent so much money on the record. And by the way, everybody at the camp, from Axel all the way down, sweethearts, really just awesome. It was a great experience for me. But, like with any business, they had a lot of people, and they got to the end of their record budget. I think they spent $13 million on the album. So eventually, and last hired, first let go. But I was fortunate to be able to work on the original demo for that song Better. And we did it at our studio in North Hollywood. And my drummer, Don Bish at the time, played drums on the demo. And of course, Robin wrote the whole song. It's all his composition. And I think when they got in the studio, Axel wrote the words to it, of course, and all of that. So none of the stuff that we did ever made it to the record. But, it is what it was. And
yeah,
I think if you listen to all the songs on the record, that's the one to me that sounds the most like Guns N' Roses. But I wasn't really a fan per se. I mean, I heard their songs, but keep in mind, my music is a lot darker and a lot less commercial. and I was never going to be played on MTV. So, you know what I mean? They were living this big rock star dream, and I was just amazed that how big, things can get, and how smart everybody was. There was no dumbos in that organization. You know what I mean? Everyone really had a lot of talent, were hardworking and smart as a whip.
Folks, Synical will release their 5th album. This will all happen again July 21st via Cleopatra Records. You want to get out and pick this up. So, Brian, my friend, how can folks pick this album up, all these singles, and support Synical? How can they do that, my friend?
Well, please check out our label, Cleopatra Records. They have the website. And if you buy the record through Cleopatra, instead of just streaming it, if you want to get that higher quality version, whether it's an LP, and by the way, it's a white vinyl LP, the heaviest record that you can possibly get. It's real juicy, real high quality piece of art. The CD itself is amazing, very good sound quality, and the downloads too. But we'll give you a link, and we have a 22-minute concert that you'll be able to download. There's also going to be photos and backstage liner notes, all kinds of interesting stuff for people that make that commitment. But CleopatraRecords.com. And you can also go to the Cleopatra Records YouTube channel and check out our first 2 videos. We have a 3rd video coming. And I think you could really get a chance to come in and listen to this album. I think it really has an appeal that a lot of people are going to connect to. Maybe they aren't feeling so great. There's a lot of people just like you out there.
Brian, my friend, before I let you go, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Absolutely. Hey, this is Brian Haught from Synical. You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour. It's your #1 source. Trust me, right here. Please get out, check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link and our YouTube link that you definitely want to subscribe to the YouTube link if you like what I'm doing, and I hope that you guys and gals do, because I sure am glad and very, very thankful to bring these to you all. And please check out Synical. Give them a fair shot. Pick up their 5th album. This will all happen again. Pick up their old stuff too. If you can find it out there, just go grab it and give them a listen. And I think you guys won't be disappointed. So, Brian, thank you.
If you're not Synical yet, you will be.
Oh, there you go, my friend. If you're not Synical yet, you will be. Thank you, Brian, for doing this interview, my man.
It's been my pleasure.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.